It's good to be with you once again. Normally, this show deals with suicide loss, ideation, and mental health. This show will be a little different. It was prompted by death. It's going to be about memories, but not suicide related. Well, not per se. It's simply about the pain and grief of loss. Just last week, I talked about the grief train, and I find myself reboarding too soon, as even when you know it will eventually come, it's always too soon. Let me start by saying that I honestly feel I am blessed to have had my father until after he had his 92nd birthday. I don't think anybody in our family has ever lived that long. See, my dad was diagnosed with dementia a few weeks before his 90th birthday. I feel very blessed about that. Just a year before, we lost my younger and only sister in October of 2021. Things got a bit muddled for my dad, and he was diagnosed with dementia a few weeks before his 90th birthday. In this last year, things have really changed. Dad now has such a short-term memory that he often asks a question, and before I finish the answer, he's asking the question again. We got to a point where he would phone a few times a week to ask where my mother was. My mother died in 2012. And although deep in dementia, they say it's cruel to make people remember, he wasn't far enough gone for me to lie to him. I wanted to maintain the trust that we had because I absolutely adore my father. I have to say, I am somebody who has absolutely no patience. Okay. I know the universe is always trying to teach me to have patience. And the funny thing is, for my dad, I have all the patience in the world. See, he's my hero. And yes, I know I say that in present tense. He was such a good man. He adored my mother from the very day he met her. My sister and I grew up watching this incredible love affair, and we saw all the good things that a man can do and say for the love of his life. Sometimes people say, children will cement a marriage and they need the children to keep things together. We weren't needed. We were a bonus and felt very, very loved. Yet we saw every single day this incredible love affair, my mom and my dad. And it made a great impression. But sadly, for my sister and I, it meant that we had insanely high expectations for anybody we went into a relationship with. You see, Dad wrote poetry to my mom. He bought her gifts for every and any occasion. And he was sent off to Aden, Saudi Arabia, 2 weeks after they met. You know, he wrote to my mother every day for 13 months. When he returned, they began to plan their wedding. And when I was only a few years old, my father and mother chose to emigrate to Canada. Now, just have to say here for the record, nobody consulted me. And some of me is still a bit miffed. See, my heart will forever be in Edinburgh. My parents, they gave up all their material belongings, instead using those funds to bring my gran and my aunt with us to Canada. Because the one thing I've been taught my whole life is family is the most important thing. My whole life was lived by that principle. It meant that my father, when he got older, had only one wish. And he repeated it a lot after my mom died. He would stay in the house he and my mother had bought, and he was only leaving, in his words, boots up. My job as the now only child was to honor that wish, whatever it took. And I am proud to say that's exactly what I did with the help of my husband and my son and my nephew. Now we are in stasis. Several factors have come into play that require time and waiting. And I must also honor this lack of forward motion. This is how I'll honor my father while we wait. I am not good at waiting. Not for much. And it seems I pass that on to my daughter and her kids. Not wanting to wait for holidays, birthdays, Christmas, etc. It's taken to the extreme. One year, she had us celebrate Christmas on December 3rd. But I digress. My father died on Sunday, March the 9th, in the wee hours of the morning. Being the only child left, and it feels so weird to call myself a child. I'm 69 years old, yet that is the fact. I am the only child. We spent the day from that morning, hubby and I, mostly waiting. First, waiting for the doctor to call back so he could come and pronounce my dad. The doctor was with the palliative care team and could not have been a nicer human being. We were also waiting for the priest. My father converted to Catholicism in 1953, not as people presumed, in order to marry my Scots-Irish Catholic mother. He actually converted because he wanted to become a Catholic since he was a boy. My gran, his mum, was Catholic, but she married my Church of Scotland granddad. And I don't know if she ever got to practice her religion openly. My grandfather, I learned later in life, was banished from the family home for this offense. Religion to this day can be still a great divide. Now, my father is the epitome of a model Catholic. They say that sometimes happens with people who convert. When my father and mother returned to Ottawa at the end of the 70s, they had been posted to London, England. They settled in the East End in a place called Orleans. The new development area didn't have a parish of their own, not an English one. And my father joined the committee that built the church and the school in what was now called the New Divine Infant Parish. One of the most important things to my dad was that he found it essential that he get last rites. That was why we waited for the priest. I have to tell you, waiting such a thing with me in 2012 when my mom died, it was very sudden and we were not ready. And I ended up, because it was so important to my father that my mom get last rites, I actually sent 2 people to the church to kidnap a priest. That's a story for another day. Waiting, again, we were waiting for the funeral home to come and pick up my dad. The young men that came eventually were very kind and considerate. And one of them saw a Legion photo and asked if my father was military. When we told them yes, they made a point of going out to get a Canadian flag, and his stretcher was draped with the flag on the trip to the funeral home, which has become now for us a marathon of waiting. You see, I was also waiting for a return message from my nephew. He was on vacation with his family in Mexico. I told him to go, but I was loath to contact him as I didn't want to interrupt their vacation. I didn't want to leave my nephew, his wife, and their young teens with a lasting dread of happy times. I wanted to give them the joy of vacation and wait to break the news until they came back. There was nothing that they could do that couldn't wait until the following weekend. Sadly, my son didn't wait. He and my nephew had already discussed this possibility. And as this wasn't the first time we lost someone in the family, while one or both of them were unavailable, my son called and told him. Time seemed to stand still. When I spoke with my nephew, we agreed that he wasn't going to tell the kids until they returned, which was only a week away. Better for them to enjoy their vacation and not associate it with the loss of their darling great-grandfather. All the grandkids called him GGD. Time seemed to stand still while we waited. We left my dad's finally to come back to our home at 8 in the evening. We basically came home to wait. While waiting, I started to go through the photos and I brought home the one pet of whom my father was very proud. I'm really excited, actually, to introduce you to Earl. Earl is my dad's cat. Now, Earl came into our lives in 1985. In fact, I bought him for my dad for Christmas. He's dead. I'm talking about Earl. Earl is the dead cat. Earl actually came with papers. He came with an information booklet and a death certificate. Now, I realize in all good conscience, I can't leave that sentence hanging here. Yet, let me go back to the beginning and explain things a little bit. Our family has a long history of giving odd gifts, gags, and always going for the laugh, the punny line, the old joke, beating the horse long after it's gone. It actually started with my Aunt Kathleen. She was my godmother. And she often said when I was a kid that I would turn into an olive because I was forever in the fridge grabbing olives. By age 7, I would get a jar of olives in my stocking every Christmas. My father would get a magazine that we weren't allowed to look at. And it was kind of tisk by the other adults. And they were always laughing in kind of a weirdly embarrassed way. My father always looked totally embarrassed. But it was all in good fun. And my mom would get some odd frilly oven gloves or a spatula with eyeglasses or some other such nonsense. And it was just good, clean fun. By the time I was 12, I wanted in on the action. From a mink stole made for a Barbie to silly hats, odd socks, kinds of weird things. For a number of years, the little silly gifts and olives continued. In March of 1976, I was already married and out of the house, and my father was sent off on a peacekeeping mission in Gaza. I had my accident, and my poor father had to wait by the ham radio for 3 full days. As they promised, the minute I died, they'd put him on a transport back to Canada. I can't imagine having to wait, but I was no longer dependent, and that's how they do it in the military. Later that year, when my father finished his tours, he was transferred to London, England, where he, my mom, and my sister stayed for more than 3 Christmases. We spent them apart. We kind of fell off the joke wagon. That is, until they came back to Canada. Late in 1979, only 2 weeks after they came back, my godmother, Aunt Kathleen, my mother's only sister, died on holiday in Pennsylvania. My father immediately got on a plane to repatriate her body and return my grandmother to Canada. My mother was totally devastated. For Christmas that year, I decided to restart the goofy gift tradition to try and cheer up my mom. Although I don't know how much it would cheer up my mother. I don't know that she ever really loved the silly gift thing. My father, who of course adored my mother and worked each day to try and make her happy, I guess he too thought the tradition required reinstatement. I got olives in my stocking. Thank you, Dad. And that was the year I bought my parents a 39-foot yacht. No, I didn't win the lottery. Think of a little plastic yacht about 10 inches long, and it had 39 plastic bare feet underneath. I thought it hilarious. Actually, the whole family did. I had always said I wanted to, do things for the family, and this was my idea of, well, a joke about doing things. For the next few years, I mixed it up. One year, my mother and father came home from a summer vacation to a full cemetery in the front yard. I had made headstones, painted cardboard, and they said things like, "Here lies dear old Fred, a great big rock fell on his head." There was one that said, "R.I.P. Old Ma Walker, non-stop talker, ran out of breath, talked herself to death." Another was, "Here lies Johnny Yeast. Pardon me for not rising." Yeah, I still think they're funny. And my fave was Pastor Prime. Now, a couple of years later, after an incident with my brother in law and peas, I absolutely hate peas. I thought my mother or father had put one on my plate. And when my mother finally sat down to dinner with the rest of us, I threw it at her. Yeah, I know that's not a really adult thing to do, but I am who I am. We finally worked it out, and next Christmas, guess what? Can of peas in my stocking. Still got my olives though, which was great. I think by now you get the bent of kind of where we are on the weird humor spectrum. So let's get back to Earl. My father grew up in a rather poor area of Edinburgh. It was called Lower View Craig Row. Now, not the posh area, not glamorous. It was actually known as the slums, in an area known as the Dummy Dykes. And it was near Holyrood Palace and the park, Hollywood Park. There were cats. Lots of people had cats, but they were the working kind. They weren't pets. And my whole life, my father never understood anybody having a pet cat. He believed they were working animals that kept the vermin population down. Now, in all honesty, we didn't have vermin here in Canada. And I so very much wanted a pet when I was a kid. In my mid-teens, I did finally get a rabbit. My dad really liked him. He was kind of smart and he came when you called him. But it's not the same. Anyway, I was finished all my shopping pretty much, and I was in an area downtown that's called the Byward Market. Back when we first came to Canada, it was a lovely, bustling little outdoor market. There were butchers and bakers and utilitarian clothiers and a few bars and lots of stalls selling fruit and vegetables and in the spring, fresh maple syrup. They had all forms from from little shaped houses made of boiled syrup to jugs of the sweet amber liquid. Funny thing is, I never really liked the maple flavor, although getting a tiny shape that was sweet that you could just suck on all day was kind of neat. In my 20s, the Byward Market had lots of lovely boutiques, little boutiques and specialty shops along the streets on the outside of the main area where the market mall or the market stalls were. And one of those little boutiques was a place called the Pepper Pot. So I was with a couple of friends and basically finished with my Christmas shopping. We were just wandering through some of the boutiques when I spied this flat, splayed out form of the most amazing and best, in my mind, gag gift ever. This was Earl. He had papers attached that said, Earl the Dead Cat. And on the papers, there was a tagline that said, the last cat you'll ever need. I mean, he just screamed a present for my dad. He came with an actual death certificate. It says, Certificate of Death, Kittyville Department of Health, Division of Vital Records and Health Statistics. And his is certificate number 429. His full name of the deceased, it says, is Earl the Dead Cat. Sex is neutered. It says his race is gray. Date of death was August 13th, 1985, and his age was unknown. Name of the hospital of death, I don't think I've ever seen that before. It's the Kittyville Cat Clinic, all spelt with K's. And the name of father of deceased is Horace, in brackets, Alley Cat. His birthplace is in the Catskill Mountains. Mother's maiden name is Martha Manx, and his usual occupation is itinerant caterwauler. The kind of business he was into was alley entertainment, and the source of information on the death certificate came from Cornelius Calico. And then it says, cause of death, immediate cause, loss of ninth life, due to catatonia, and that was due to catting around. Other significant conditions contributing to death, being let out of the bag. Describe how injury relating to death occurred. Said he was catapulted from catwalk by projectile, in brackets, old shoe. Injury occurred while singing Melancholy Baby, and the place of injury was Katrina's Cat on a Hot Tin Roof Alley Cafe. Place of removal, Eternal Catnap Memorial Chapel and Chinese takeout. Remember, this was 1985, not necessarily politically correct. To the best of my knowledge, death occurred at 2 a.m., it says. And the signature of attending physician is Mad Dog. This was certified by the city of Kittyville. Somebody put a lot of thought into the certificate of death. And on the rest of the little paperwork that came with him, there is it's not a poem, it's just a lot of little what the cat does, or rather what the cat doesn't do. He doesn't eat smelly cat food. He doesn't need a messy litter box. He doesn't shed, go into heat, or chase cats that are. He doesn't wander off, so you always know where he is. He doesn't have to be put out at night or let back in at 4:32 a.m. Doesn't climb the draperies or mistake the sofa for a scratching post. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I will make sure are below with the transcripts because they're pretty funny. The whole thing was just such a total gag. Now, bear with me here because I was excited for my dad to get this and find it funny. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that Earl would live a better life than some people. Earl is very well traveled. Earl has been to Mallorca, he's been to London, Edinburgh, California, Florida, Victoria, and Vancouver, not to mention Calgary, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and a number of other northern states. He's been to Germany as well, and we believe France. And here we are now in 2025. And it is truly the end of an era. All of the parents in my parents, or all of the people in my parents group, many of them were Scottish. Many of them became family of choice because we didn't have a lot of family here in Canada. But we call them the party people. They love to sing and dance and play all kinds of silly games. They've all passed. My father was the last to go. All I have left is Earl. He's going to hang around our house on the hearth near the fireplace, ready to inspire a story for the next guest who visits. He's ready to gift me with another stroll down memory lane with all the chuckles, the giggles, and the additional stories that seem to pop up when Earl is the center of attention. Daddy, you may be gone, yet your spirit, your sense of fun, and that bent sense of humor I too possess, and it will live on, keeping you ever with me in my heart. I thank you for listening to me today. And I will, of course, be taking Earl with us when we bury my father. He'll be going with a military send off. He was in both the RAF and the RCAF, and also a United Nations peacekeeper. A piece of my heart will go with him as well. I just want to say thank you for being my dad. Thank you for showing me what it is to live life well and what fun is and how to make sure that there's always laughter in your house and love in your heart. And I have to say, I feel incredibly blessed to have you as my dad. I appreciate you being here today. And I want to say, as usual, thank you for listening. And may you make the most of your today, every day. And I look forward to chatting with you again next week. Bye for now.